Do you know about the joke on the internet about your book? Do you know about it? About this?
I'm sure there's...
No, there's a good one. This is a good one.
No, I don't.
This is called Dead Center, but it's the right side of your face.
I never paid attention to that.
Hi, everyone. Today, I've got a great interview with Joe Manchin. You remember Joe. He was the senator in the center that kept making trouble for Democrats and who Republicans kind of liked. Unfortunately, we are not in a centrist moment, and I want to talk to him about what that means and his role in it. So let's get into it. I don't know if you know this, but my family's from West Virginia.
No, I don't.
You sound like my grandfather. Right? I mean, you sound like my relatives.
But when they play Country Roads, you sing the whole thing?
I do. I know the entire song.
Me too.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. So let's start with the news. Last week, conservative right-wing activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at the university rally in Utah. It was the latest in a spate of politically motivated violence, including the assassination of a Minnesota lawmaker and her husband, the arson attack on Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro, the assassination attempts on President Trump, and the assault of Nancy Pelosi's husband. In your memoir, you write about these bipartisan dinners with D.C. lawmakers at your houseboat, Almost Heaven, as in West Virginia. To be honest, that seems a little quaint at this moment. As someone who said he's, quote, dead center, what's your solution for a populace that has become so polarized?
Well, first of all, you have to understand how the system works in Washington, Congress, 535. Mm-hmm. First of all, we don't know each other. So you're not building relationships. Very few people live there anymore. So they come in on Monday night at 5:30. You come in, you vote, and then boom, you go your own way. Tuesday and Wednesday, if you have committee meetings, you'll run into them. They're always having fundraisers. Someone's always up in cycle. Mm-hmm. All 435 Congress people were in cycle every year. It's 2 years, but they start campaigning the day after, okay? So they're always busy. The Senate, you have about a third of the Senate that's always in cycle every 2 years. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, Kara, then to know each other and to be able to socialize and all that. So I would always try to find some time to invite a few down to my boat. It's a big trawler, and everyone seems to enjoy it, but I always had a kind of a rule that you need to bring both sides. So if we're talking to 3 or 4 Democrats, we have to find 3 or 4 Republicans. I don't want to have just a partisan get-together. Doesn't prove anything. And we were successful at that, had a good time. And I saw just that little effort we were making. People were talking. People were doing amendments together on bills that they would have never done before. So all that's very possible, but like I said, you said, what's wrong with Washington? Is it going to change? Let me just say this to you. One of the most difficult times of my career being in the U.S. Senate from 2010 to 2025 was the Sandy Hook shooting, the massacre of these little children. That went through me. I just still cannot get over the fact that so many of those parents couldn't even have an open casket for their child. But with that being said, you would have thought we could have at least had what we call background checks, just a reasonable approach to something, saying we're doing something. And that horrific tragedy, like this is a horrific tragedy, Charlie Kirk and his family, whether you agree, whether you paid attention, whether you even knew, but to have a young man who was willing to go to campuses, speak his mind, and ask for debates back and forth, right, wrong, or indifferent, okay? But to be taken out like that, it's just unbelievable to me. There's just the visceral attitude that people have towards the political dynamics today is just something I've never seen.
So talk about that, because this is something you've tried to say, if only we went to the center. This is not happening. I mean, do you put it at any one place?
Yeah, we were talking, Karen, I think the way you could probably fix it is, first of all, I tried to pass a piece of legislation, just an ethical violation if we campaigned against each other. Mm-hmm. If you know someone, it's hard to say no to your friend. Mm-hmm. And when you do say no, it's almost like with a tear in your eye. I don't want to give you the news that you don't want to hear, mm-hmm. as much as you don't want to hear it. So it hurts me too. That's not fair. It's easy to say no to someone you don't know. It's easy to fluff that off. And when I first got to the Senate, I could not believe it. November 15th of 2010. And I get there, and I thought there would be kind of camaraderie. Everybody's having a great working together. They might have a differences debate on the floor, then go about your way. That wasn't it. You were expected to go raise money every day, make phone calls, raise money, and the money you had in your PAC, Political Action Committee PAC, was supposed to be used to defeat anybody on the other side. So if you have an R by your name, any deed that's running, you're against. Okay? Even if it's your friend, or vice versa, if you're a D. In my case, being a moderate, centrist, I guess, conservative Democrat, which most West Virginians were. I said, now wait a minute, you want me to raise money, and when someone's running against my friends, whether it be Lisa Murkowski or Susan Collins, Mitt Romney, whoever it may be, you want me to give that person, whoever it may be, just because they have a D by their name, money to defeat my friend?
Well, yes. So.
And I says, I won't do it. I never did do it.
But how does it, understanding the situation and then doing something about it is one thing. Is there somewhere, like, for example, speaking to all Americans from the Oval Office, President Trump had an opportunity to quell the violence and reach across the aisle, but he didn't. Go ahead and listen to this.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now.
So I will confess, I was shocked. I'm not shocked by much of what Trump does, but I thought, oh, good, okay, he's going the right direction. And then it shifted, and he got even more divisive on Fox. Just for people who do not understand, the ADL report that came out earlier this year, right-wing extremists were responsible for 76% of the politically motivated deaths, which is a large number. And the demonization, which does take place on both sides, is from the very top of the ticket there. And you've spoken...
Let me say this.
Go ahead.
If I can, Karen.
Go ahead. Sure.
I know Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. The first 2 years, I was probably the only Democrat that he really spent any time with or come over because I come from a centrist background. At one time, he said something about, he always said, well, Joe, you're so moderate in your views. Why don't you just be Republican? And I says, Mr. President, why don't you just still be a moderate centrist Democrat? Okay, so we had a big laugh about that. I said the party shouldn't determine who you are as a person, and I've never been a big party person, but I've always respected both sides. In West Virginia, they were always kind of conservative and moderate in their thought process. So I know President Trump, and I can assure you that's not the President Trump. What you see on that. And when he speaks and the cameras in the public, when you're with him, he's gracious, he's easy to work with, you can talk to him, it's reasonable, on and on and on. So all I'm saying to everybody that's elected official, our democracy is based on a representative form. That means we'll govern ourselves and we'll choose who we want to govern for us. That's who we elect. And with that being said, I've always said, whoever your president, whoever your elected official, they're responsible to respond to all of us. They're representing me. West Virginia's looking to me. Am I kind of speaking their language, speaking for them, or trying to make sure people understand who we are in West Virginia? I think, and I've said this, we all have better angels in us. I'm hoping President Trump's a better angel because it starts at the top. The better angels speak to him, speaking to me, and speaking to all elected officials, that this has got to be ratcheted down. This visceral, making it normalize, this attack, and the way you speak about people. I came from a little town, Farmington, West Virginia, a little coal mining community. I was held accountable and responsible for my words and my actions.
Right, except that wasn't that. I mean,
No, I'm just
saying
saying
he's nice behind the scenes, this is publicly.
I'm just saying, I know there's another side of him.
Okay, where is it?
I'm hoping to see it.
Okay.
I think the public needs to see it. And if not, then I'm wrong, okay? I'd like for him to. I like to think that about everybody. This thing here I would have thought that, we could have passed the Manchin-Toomey bill after the massacre.
Yes.
Okay, very easily. All we needed 60 votes. We had 56 votes. It was a no-brainer. 80% of the public wants background checks so we know who's buying guns and if they have a right to have one. Couldn't pass that because of politics. And someone says, do you think it's going to change now because of the murder of Charlie Kirk? I said, if I couldn't change it with 20 children getting massacred, I'm not expecting it. And it's not going to change unless the politicians, the elected officials, the representative that we have in this form of democracy that we have, start speaking in a tone that we would want to be spoke to. If you don't expect anything different. If this visceral atonement continues, you're going to have what you have now, maybe more of it. It's horrible.
So how do you get back to that? For example, the president should be trying to diffuse the situation instead of inciting violence. You hope for his better angels isn't exactly a plan. What do you imagine?
It's the only plan I've got right now. I'm hoping that all of us, said Mr. President, and every senator and every congressional person, every local official, every governor, tone it down from the standpoint, I might not agree with you, okay? But I don't have to call you names. I don't have to call you out and think it's all your fault. The system has allowed it. Let me give you another example, Kara. Last 2 or 3 days, I've heard some acquaintances and associates talking about they defriended this person. I defriended 10 people. I'm not big on social media, so the only thing I can tell you is this. I know with a click, you can eliminate that person being your friend. I never grew up that way. If you and I were friends and there was a problem, I'd come talk to you and say, Kara, I just don't agree with what you're saying. Did you really mean this? Or somehow we can work this problem out? Today, you don't have to confront that. A click. So you want to look at the social media? I think basically we should hold the social platforms accountable for this visceral language. They allow everything to happen. And then Section 230 of the federal code protects them. You can't go after them. That's wrong. AI coming out now, we have to hold people that allows this type of rhetoric accountable for the consequences.
Governor Cox was talking about the cancer that it was.
He talked about the cancer, but we've all identified that. But then he needs to pass it in his state then.
So why has that not been passed? This is obviously something I talk about for decades now.
We tried. We have tried, but the lobbying is so hard from the tech industry. They say, oh no, if you do that, then we will not have the audiences that we have. We will not have the attraction that we have now that you can almost do or say anything. I said, we've always been held accountable. There used to be truth in advertising that way many years ago, you couldn't say something wasn't inaccurate. You'd be held accountable and liable as one of the broadcasters of the 3 major broadcasters back then. That all changed. So things it's just gotten out of hand, and you've got to hope that can we still maintain this experiment called self-governing.
Let's talk about your background a bit. In Dead Center, you write about how you both your father and your grandfather were small business owners. You worked in their retail stores until well into your 30s. In 1982, you ran for office for the first time. In 1988, you founded your own business, a waste coal brokerage company called Enter Systems. Enter Systems. Talk about how they shaped you from an entrepreneurial point of view, as much as being held back because of family obligations, and how it influenced you as governor and then senator of West Virginia.
So I basically started when I got involved in the political arena called retail government. Retail government means I treat you as a constituent as a valued customer. I want your business. I want you to be happy with what I give you, the services, and I want you to tell your friends about it so I can help more. In business, the word of mouth is the best advertising. And I wanted people to come to government being your partner, not your provider. And I've always said that. In a democracy, it only works if we all participate. If you're not participating, you're not willing to get involved. I have so many people, Kara, I can't even talk about, would you run for public office? Heck no, I never get involved. I don't want people beating me up, and I don't want people talking about me. I don't want my whole past being flashed in front of me. I said, that's a small price to pay for the great country we live in and the life you have. Someone's got to sacrifice. It doesn't work if you don't. So if you're not willing to run, are you willing to help her recruit people to get involved? Or are you just going to sit on the sideline and say someone else will do that? And if we get more people sitting on the sidelines, if we get more people expected to get something out of government than they're putting into it, it won't work. So people said, I think we might be at the end of this experiment. I hope not. We've been through difficult, challenging times before. And we came out of that. And there was a time I thought we wouldn't. So those people who think it's dire right now and will never make it, we will.
Do you think it's dire? Where do you assess it?
No, I'm saying you hear people talk about it all the time.
Yes, you do, but I want to know how you think.
Oh, not at all. Because I've seen much worse, okay? And I've seen this rebound.
So let's talk first about how we got here. In 2010, after being governor of West Virginia for 5 years, you ran for a seat vacated by the late Senator Robert Byrd and won. It was 2 years.
I didn't want to do it, but I did it.
You did it. So it was 2 years into President Obama's first term as governor. You fought against the Affordable Care Act. You admit in the book you were wrong on that one.
As governors, we were always homogenous. We were always together. You couldn't tell a Democrat. If you went to a National Governors Association meeting, you couldn't tell who the D's and the R's were. We all had education problems. We had road problems. We had serviceability. We had all the different things. We had education. We had to work through these problems, and we helped each other. That bill started dividing us as governors because they started getting all these phone calls from Washington. You're a Democrat, you got to support this. You're a Republican, you got to be against this, and on and on and on. And we're talking and trying to make sense out of this. And I said, well, let me just listen to what Max Baucus is going to basically give us a rundown of what the bill does. And he spoke to us, and I says, Max, let me make sure I understand. You're saying that everyone has to buy insurance, okay? And we have to buy the product you're offering. You would have no choice. It is either buy this or you got nothing, or you'll be fine. Well, Max, that might work in Montana, but I don't think that's going to work in West Virginia. If you're forcing us to buy something without letting us shop it and telling us what we're going to have to buy, and if we don't do what you tell us, you're going to fine us. I don't think that would be the best way to approach this. Well, they made some modifications, but we know it came out. And so I wasn't against it or for it. Once we had it, it helped a lot of West Virginians who had nothing. It helped the rural hospitals because they were starting to get payment now they never got before. They were getting free care. And so I was hopeful that would be, and I want to make something better. And I still think we can improve.
So it's worked out in West Virginia.
It's helped a lot of people in West Virginia.
Yeah.
But those who are still working, they didn't have the choices they had before.
Right.
And that was the problem, okay? But we're better for it than we were without it. And can we improve upon it? Absolutely.
But one of the things is, during that time period, West Virginia did, as you noted, turned red. What do you think is responsible? Obama? What happened? I
can tell you exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
Without even
for losing working class voters.
They lost them. How did you lose? All the coal miners. How did you lose all the factory workers? And you know, our state of West Virginia, a lot of your homegrown family members are from there and still have roots there. They were hardworking people, never asked for a whole lot. I've been a Democrat all my life. Why was I a Democrat? Probably because my grandfather was. Then my parents were, because they were very appreciative of what FDR did back and give them a chance when things were tough back in the Depression. And then with that, we always thought the Democratic Party would always be there to help a working family, to help someone basically in working conditions, have safe working conditions, and have benefit packages, okay? That was it. They weren't getting involved in our life to tell us what we should think about, what we should do, and we're wrong if we don't. So I was asked a question in 2014 by Elizabeth Warren, my friend. We're friends, but we just differ a lot, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. She said, Joe, what happened to the West Virginia Democrat? That's when the state flipped totally Republican for the first time in 80 years. I says, Elizabeth, really not a whole lot. They want to know what happened to the Washington Democrats. She says, what do you mean? I says, well, the Democrats that I knew and grew up with really believe in their heart of hearts right now that the Washington Democrats treat them as if they were returning Vietnam veteran. You're not good enough, not clean enough, not green enough, not smart enough. You just don't need me anymore. Leave me behind. The war on coal, you heard about that when Obama got elected. He wanted to switch everything to renewables. There's nothing wrong with what he wanted to do because he was elected as the President of the United States. But you just can't leave a whole generation, society, or a state behind. There was nothing to replace what he wanted to switch. There was nothing left. There was no jobs coming. And towns were shuttered. And things were happening, and I'm thinking, my God, you're putting unreasonable demands. You're putting targets that the technology is not there for us to meet. So it really is a war. That started it, and it went down from there. And
Why didn't you change your political affiliation at the time?
I didn't say, well, probably if I should have, if I would have thought about it, I'm thinking, well.
I mean, in your campaign ad, you did shoot a copy of Obama's cap and trade bill.
It was a horrible cap and trade.
Right.
Let me tell you cap and trade over in Europe. Cap and trade basically charges you for every amount of carbon content you have in products you buy. Okay. What do they do with the proceeds? And I said, well, all you're doing is putting all your money in your social welfare reforms without fixing the problem, but you're penalizing the problem. So I said, I'm not going to be for that. I said, if you want to fix something, let's do it.
Why not change your party affiliation? Why didn't you?
I just thought for sure the Democrats can't be that far off the Richter scale. They've got to come back. These are people I grew up with and knew, and one by one they were getting just annihilated, and people started changing their registration. And I told Elizabeth, I said, Elizabeth, I can tell it to you this way. You don't want to hear what I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you. The Democrats that I know and grew up with in West Virginia truly believe that the Democratic National Party in Washington, D.C. spends more resources, time, and effort on able-bodied, capable people that don't or won't work than you do on those who do. I can't tell it to you any straighter.
You say coal miners never asked for much, but the federal funds make up more than half of West Virginia's budget, for example.
The state, my goodness, we're a tremendous recipient of federal funds because of the poverty that we have.
Right, that's
and
correct.
The hardships and all that. So you can blame it on so many different things that you can. We are a state that was basically discovered during the Civil War and taken advantage of every day after. Absentee ownerships, a lot of the gilded homes in Rhode Island were based off the backs of West Virginia land and coal and minerals, things of that sort. So we didn't get the return that other states have gotten, whether it be Detroit with the automobiles and things of that sort. Yeah, we got hit hard.
So what happened was you often then became the swing state in the Senate, and you say some of
swing vote,
in the Senate. And after Trump was elected in his first term, there was talk that you were under consideration to become Secretary of Energy. So did you seriously think about joining the Trump cabinet?
He called me up when they first got elected in 2016 because he's looking. Everyone says you have to have a bipartisan administration. So I went up to New York, went up and visited with him, and we sat there and we talked. And he has other people around. He had Reince Priebus and different people, and we were talking. And I said, Mr. President, if you and I are going to go down this and consider us working together, I said, what I would want to know is what you expected from that office. So let's say it's energy. What would you expect from energy? Okay, and then allow me to put a staff together that would produce. If we didn't produce, throw us out. Well, I could tell he hadn't been that acclimated to how this works. And about that time, Reince Priebus, who was the head of the RNC at one time, he saw Joe. He says, no, we'd have to work that out. And of course, I knew the answer, and I started laughing. I said, Reince, I understand. You have to have your people there to make sure that office runs the way you want it, not the way I would want to do it.
Right.
And I said, Mr. President, listen, in all honesty, I says, whoever my president, and you're my president now, you just got elected, I want you to succeed, and I'll do everything I can to help you. But I will speak truth to power. And there'll be times that I just cannot vote for things that you would like, but I'll always give you a reason why. He seemed to accept that. But then, as you know, he's gotten more demanding a little bit than other people. But yeah.
Yeah, you'd be in a different position right now.
Yeah, but I could, it would have been very difficult.
So one of the things I noticed from the book is, you've said often you didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left you. That's a common refrain from some people. You heap a lot of praise on Republicans in your book, and mostly have disdain for Democrats. For example,
well, let me just tell you.
Go ahead.
I know where you're.
No, I'm just asking because it's in the book. I mean, let me just.
What's in the book? Basically, I only knew one party. I never caucused with the other party, and if I was so enamored with him, I'd have joined him. Why didn't I join him? Because I didn't think the party system, they've gotten so absolutely separated to the point where they're not representing the American people. You've got to be selling your soul to one side or the other. I don't agree. And I told him that. I said, you have to have a secured border. You have to have, basically, laws. And the rule of law means everything. And when you do the crime, you pay the fine. You pay the price. Democrats be getting lax and lax and lax on this. And I've told them, you can't do that. They've never talked about, one time, Kara, did I ever hear, 15 years I was there, from the Democrat side, that ever talked about the debt of the nation. When I got there, it was 13 trillion. It had grown to 37. It's growing now to 37.
Largely Donald Trump, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, no, it was all sides. It was George Bush.
Yes,
George
it was,
Bush.
but if you actually add it up, Trump is responsible for 25% of it. But go ahead. Up compared to 47 other presidents. But go ahead.
No, it all happened. Hold on. You're wrong.
All right.
You're wrong from this standpoint. We were on the trajectory after Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton balanced the budget. Yes.
Bill Clinton. It was basically Erskine Bowles and John Kasich. And then with Newt, and you had Newt, and you had the president. They worked this thing out. It started spinning off basically surpluses.
Yes.
We were going downward. We were at $6 trillion. And after we had 9/11 and we had two wars that we never paid for, declared war, first time under George W. And then we had 2 Bush cuts, tax cuts. She shot up like this. Under Obama, it kept going. Under Trump, it went quicker in a 4-year period. I agree. And now with what you're talking about now, I was totally opposed to what they were doing. And both parties, Joe Biden wanted the BBB bill, and Donald Trump wanted the BBB bill. Both of them are horrendous on the debt. No one's talking about it.
But in this book, you are, as you say, you caucus with him. That's why you for example, you said that Kamala Harris's position on eliminating the filibuster was the reason you didn't support her presidential campaign last year. But you also, when you write about Republican under Mitch McConnell extending the nuclear option to push through Supreme Court nominees, you also blame the Democrats for starting it. I mean, where do you
I blame the Democrats because I begged Harry Reid not to do it.
Right, correct. So
I voted against Harry Reid when he tried to do it.
Where is the responsibility for the loss of bipartisanship as someone who's dead center?
Oh, it's on both sides. No, there's no. I don't see anyone reaching out. The only thing I felt more comfortable that the Republicans would hold on to the filibuster. But now I'm seeing, and I've talked to some of my Republican friends, they're like encroaching a little bit from here, nibbling away here, trying to basically bundle, people that have to be confirmations, and all that. And I told Harry Reid back in 2013, I said, Harry, why don't you just go talk to Mitch? And right now, you're all upset. The Obama administration is upset because they can't get some of their people approved, which is what Trump's people are right now, to get their staff and cabinet. And I said, there's a thing called will and pleasure. If I become governor, if I become president, I want to bring a team together. They're going to come under me, and they're going to leave when I leave. Their term of office does not extend 1 minute longer than when I leave. Why can't they just be, after you do a vetting of them, FBI background check, and if they're all having good standing, you might not like them, you might not like their politics. I got elected representative to represent the country or my state. Let me put my team together. If not, throw us all out. That's will and pleasure. That should be a 51 vote threshold. You shouldn't have to go through all this rigmarole and wait. And it's almost basically prevent a president or any executive from putting their team together. You want to cripple them, they can't run the government, so it'll look bad. You don't play politics that way. And I promise, I asked him to do that. He said, well, it's because they don't talk. There's no relationships. And if they'd have done that, you'd have never had all your judges. You'd never had the judges. You'd have never had the Supreme Court. But when he did the circuit and district judges, you knew darn well, as soon as Mitch McConnell got a hold of it, being the iron horse that he is, he was going to go for the Supreme. And he did.
So let's dig into the filibuster, which you called the Holy Grail and the soul of the Senate. The framers didn't want a supermajority requirement to pass bills. They tried that with the Continental Congress, and it failed, which is why the Constitution calls for a simple majority to pass bills in the Senate. In fact, Alexander Hamilton specifically warned against the supermajority requirement in Federalist 22. So as the filibuster was developed, it was mostly used by defenders of slavery and segregation. Robert Byrd filibustered on the Civil Rights Act for 14 hours. In the book, you repeatedly lament our political gridlock, but the filibuster is arguably the primary cause of that gridlock. Talk to critics who point out this isn't the system the Founding Fathers intended.
Well, let's assess this. There's 13 colonies, right? 1789. Who came out of there and had to explain to the states what we have, what kind of government do we have? We've always heard the famous asking Benjamin Franklin, you have a republic, young man, if you can keep it? But someone had to tell, big old Massachusetts, which was a key factor in that period of time, economic force for our country. And then you had, of course, you had a big four. You had New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. someone had to tell them that we're going to have a bicameral, we'll have a house, have people's house, and represented based on what the population is, and one person is on have equal representation. And then what about this other one called the Senate? He said, well, the Senate's going to be a little differently. He said every state's going to have 2 representatives. 2? You're telling me, and I'm a senator from Massachusetts, that basically Rhode Island and Delaware, those little teeny places that have no economy whatsoever to speak of or people, that they're going to have the same right that I have, can offset my vote? Yeah, I don't want the big guys beating up on the little guys. This is going to be the United States, not to divide it. So a senator always had the ability to speak forever. Take the time, and time is precious on the floor of the Senate. So if you tie things up, that's the filibuster. There was nothing written, but there was nothing to stop a senator from speaking until 1917. That's when the cloture votes came in, during World War I, when we had isolationists, didn't want to send any goods to our troops or to our allies, and they had to get over that. So I think it was a 67 vote threshold at that time. Then it went down to 60, I believe. Anyway, it came down to try to get it more workable. But basically we found out as we went through this that it kind of put us together. It didn't let you just retreat to your corner and just fight to your death. The House already did that. And I think it was George Washington that says, the House is going to be like a hot cup of tea. You've heard that many times, I'm sure. And the Senate will be like a saucer. They'll cool the tea off so we can drink it. And that was the whole purpose of it. So didn't have to have any written. It was basically the decorum of the Senate, what we were supposed to and what was expected
It's come
of us.
to a conclusion, but now that's sort of shot.
Well, still, that's not shot. Just think where you'd be right today. Think where the Democrats would be if I would have voted to get rid of the filibuster, where they would be today, with Donald Trump having the trifecta. Yeah. Even though he's doing a lot of things with the executive, he's not changing rules or basically putting rules and laws into place.
Right.
So the rules he's putting in can be undone as quickly as the next.
Okay,
so law, it takes a little bit longer.
It's kind of a good segue. Every episode we get a question from an outside expert. Here's yours from Representative Greg Casar, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Let's listen.
Hi, Senator Manchin. I'm Congressman Greg Casar, and my big question is not about a progressive issue. It's about an issue that should be bipartisan, and that is redistricting. In my home state of Texas, Donald Trump just rammed through radical mid-decade redistricting. We have a ballot measure now in California on redistricting. It could spread to states like Florida, Indiana, Missouri. And my question to you is, after a ban on gerrymandering passed its way through the House of Representatives, it never can make its way through the Senate. And so my question is, do you regret not carving out an exception in the filibuster or doing whatever you could to make sure that a ban on gerrymandering could make its way through the Senate and get signed into law? Do you regret that decision?
Good question.
Do I regret not getting rid of the filibuster? Absolutely not. It's the Holy Grail. We have to work through it. And the bottom line is these gerrymandering, what goes around comes around. It's horrible what the president has asked Texas to do, now what California's in retaliation is doing, and all of this. I think there's some states that basically use the nonpartisan commissions. There's some states that even use computers. There has to be a way forward on this thing here. I mean, if you're asking about the biggest problems that we have right now, it's basically the amount of money in campaigning, the amount of money that people can put in. The Citizens United was horrible, horrible, horrible. And also basically it's primaries. Right now you have a strong president, you have a strong trifecta, if you will, the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. And you have all that going for you, and you have no checks and balances to where you can say, wait a minute, that's not what pushed this through. And I understand where he's coming from. But if you had open primaries, you wouldn't be able, the president couldn't target, or the party couldn't target someone who's not a good enough Republican or Democrat and primary him. The open primary or ranked choice voting, which my dear friends Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins would never get elected as Republicans if it wasn't for that.
So do you regret not figuring out a way, though, to ban gerrymandering by making an exemption to the filibuster or not?
You can't make exemptions like a little bit of pregnancy. We tried. We looked at everything we could. What I like to see now, the filibuster,
Yeah.
is you have to have talking filibuster. You have to go down the floor and explain. You have to have maybe 10 other senators that will agree with you that they think it's a serious problem. That would make it more concrete. It would give more credence to it and credibility. And just, you can do reform like that. But you say, well, I can't carve this out. That's like, okay, the carving. Harry Reid tried to carve it out. He didn't. He carved out the U.S. The Supreme Court, right? But he left. Okay, how long did that work?
So how would you deal with banning gerrymandering at this point? Because now this will just be like everybody has a nuclear weapon, essentially, depending on the states.
There's still states' rights. The 10th Amendment gives states the rights. They're not going to be basically forced to run their government like the state, like the federal does. I think that's the whole purpose of it, keeping a government to where the states do have some right. As a former governor, I was very, very concerned about how we ran our elections. I had to answer to the people. So the people of Texas, the people of California, all of them should be speaking out. This is wrong. And basically having these gerrymandered districts of what's being done, they can put in, I think even California has an open primary process. Texas basically should say, this is wrong, because what happens today will be worse tomorrow. It's not getting any better. But saying that we're going to outlaw and ban it, I wish you could. I think it's wrong. I think you have to have independent commissions. But that's for the states to decide. The states are responsible for their elections,
which is
not the federal government.
Texas is a Republican-controlled government. But so in an interview with the New York Times opinion writer Michelle Kyle before Trump took office, you sounded optimistic that Senate Republicans wouldn't just fall in line with the president, but they've greenlit almost every nominee, no matter how underqualified. Based on these first 8 months or so, Republicans in Congress, and the House is different than the Senate, but not that much, weren't acting like they represent an independent branch of government, which they are. Do you think you got it wrong? And if they aren't willing to, the idea that they would be a counter, they wouldn't just fall in line, that they would make the right decisions. Do you think Congress remains an independent body, especially when they don't really stand up to things I assume, don't agree with?
I worry about the independency of the three branches, judicial, executive, and legislative. And right now, I thought there was an awful lot of people that I know are very strong-willed and very smart in the Republican side that I was hoping for would have been able to speak respectfully truth to power, okay? And that's why I've come to the conclusion you almost need term limits anymore. Term limits, I had a lady one time, Kara, that told me in southern West Virginia, there had to be 200 people at a town hall, and I was speaking, and she asked me a question, Joe, I wish you were for term limits. So I tried to explain to her, it had to be 10 or more years, 15 years ago when I was governor. And I told her why I was not for term limits at that time, thinking what I'd kind of always thought and heard, you have people with expertise. Now, here I was as a governor, I'm term limited out in 2 terms, 8 years, 2 fours. But I thought, well, you lose expertise in the legislative process and all the knowledge and everything. And she looked at me and she said, just think, Joe, if there were term limits, maybe we get one good term out of you. Kara, doesn't get any better than that. You know what? I says, I'm sorry, I agree with you. And I've been for term limits ever since, because it would give that legislator the courage to be independent for that last 2-year term or the last 6-year term if you're a senator.
Tom Tillis right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Suddenly
you
he's
have
brave.
that. You get that courage a little bit earlier, knowing this is your last. I really truly believe it's needed probably as much as anything, and it might cure some of the problems of gerrymandering and all these other things.
So another thing is the unitary executive theory, the idea that the president has a sole power over the executive branch has become a huge talking point. President Trump has an expansive interpretation of presidential power. Has that surprised you based on your previous experience with him? And
it concerns me from the standpoint of thinking that one person is above the law.
Yeah. So
and there's no laws that basically get corrected. And I think if you go back to our founding fathers or the Federalist Papers and this and that, they looked at everything they hated about King George. They looked at everything they hated about a monarch. We want to make sure we didn't do anything that'll lead us down that path. They were pretty good for about 200 years. The last 40 have been pretty rough. We're testing it. You asked about something a little bit earlier about the Republican Party. If you recall, you remember how soured the relationship between Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump was the first? Mm-hmm. It's because they had, I think it was 54 or 53 Republicans, I'm not sure, during that term, his 2017 to 2021 term. For the first 2 years, he had 53 or 54. I'm not sure. I'm going to be exact. And Donald Trump kept saying, hey, listen, we got a majority of Republicans. Just pass what I want. And Mitch McConnell says, no, it doesn't work that way. And Republican senators, almost to a T, said, absolutely not. We're not getting rid of the filibuster for that. No, we're not going to. And it just basically made just open warfare. I was up there, and the berating that they received from the White House at that time was unbelievable. But after the second term, I was hoping for the first pushback. Let's put it that way. And hopefully, well, they haven't gotten rid of the filibuster, but they're allowing some of these things.
Do you think Trump is acting like a king? You mentioned King George with all these executive orders.
I think he knows there's still guardrails. He can't. Certain things. The checks and balances are still there. The judicial branch, basically,
really,
okay, is still there. I still think there's some people that you're going to see that could be surprising, and the midterm election could change everything, and the demeanor of what we're doing and how much get up and go they got.
So West Virginians seem to be all in on Trump still. In a recent poll, a third of them said President Trump had done the best job as president in their lifetimes. It's clear he's been a big supporter of revitalizing the coal industry. In April, he passed 4 executive orders that basically gave the industry what it asked for. And as you said, that could be pushed back because it's not legislative. But West Virginia has more issues than coal. Infrastructure in the state is crumbling. Your state is ranked as third most dependent on federal dollars in the nation, as we talked about. Earlier this year, DOGE cuts halted millions of dollars in deliveries to food banks in Trump's tax and spending bill, including big cuts to education and Medicare, Medicaid. All this could really hurt the state. Is there going to be a shift in West Virginia?
Well, we'll see. You would like to think that people usually vote their pocketbooks or vote their services, one of the two. And with that being said, these changes, it amazed me that if you're going to do a piece of legislation, when President Biden wanted to do BBB, and I thought it was an overreach and expansion that we could never, ever afford. He and I spoke one time, and I told Mr. President, I says, you know, you and I are about the same vintage. You're a little bit older, but we're not that far apart. And I'm from the school John Kennedy asked not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. To me, that's what's calling me to public service. I think I can do something, and I wanted to. You pass this piece of legislation, Mr. President, you're going to change the psychic of the nation. How much more can my country do for me? I couldn't buy into that, okay? Then you come along and they want to do the BBB, the other big, beautiful bill, and not looking at basically what it's going to affect and how, but also it doesn't take effect until after 2026 election, until 2027. Well, wait a minute. If you're passing a piece of legislation that's so needed, don't you want it to take effect immediately to help all the people? They were afraid of the pushback. So I don't know if that's going to resonate with people, that what's going to hit you in 2027 happened because it was voted on in 2025. I've never seen anything like it, but people haven't comprehended that yet, I don't believe.
I want to finish up talking about third parties, because that's really where you're going, because the centrism hasn't really worked. Everyone's gotten even more partisan, I would say. So in 2024, you'd already announced you were running for a third term. You decided to drop the D and register as an independent. You weren't the only one. You joined Kyrsten Sinema, Angus King, and of course, Bernie Sanders. And all of you are very different politically, right? Yeah. And one of the things that you and Bernie Sanders seem to agree on, one thing, that more people should run as independents. Now, third party runs for president have never been easy, or successful for that matter, but the hurdles have only gotten bigger. We spoke earlier about the increasing number of closed primaries and gerrymandering. You had been toying with the idea of running for president as independent in 2024 with the No Labels movement. Is there any way you could see an independent party rise? New parties have formed during partisan times, that's for sure. But could you see yourself doing that?
Well, let's look right now what's happening. Okay, what's the largest denomination of people that are participating in voting? What do they belong to? The Democrat Party, Republican Party. Right now, it's about 24% registered Democrats, maybe 26%, 27% Republican. The largest is no party affiliation, which is what I belong to. So you have people that want to belong to the grand old party that's not so grand anymore. You like people like to be with the Democrat Party used to be responsible and compassionate. They don't seem to be as responsible as they were before. So you have that mixture in the middle. Is it ripe? Yeah, I think it's ripe. I'd like to see an American Independent Party. They scare the bejesus out of the two for they've gone so far. We never went to the extremes. We've always kind of governed between the 40-yard line, 40 and 40. Now we're clear down to the 10-yard, and basically it's just way out. I mean, it's gotten to the point where the yin and the yang are driving it.
But that said, dead center seems dead at this point.
Dead center from the standpoint, I tell you one thing, there's more people that believe like I do, more of a centrist, looking at where's the best idea. I want people that'll put their country before their party. If you're going into the political official being a fame and fortune, then you're chasing for your own personal goal. You're not chasing it for helping basically the country. And so term limits maybe give us more of a clarity to that. Maybe we can fix some of the other problems. But you throw away all the guardrails, and I know they keep going back to the filibuster. You start throwing away what few guardrails we have. You've got nothing. You've got nothing that'll be flip-flopping back and forth, no different than countries around the world who have no standing. We don't care about the finances of our country anymore. If we lose the reserve currency of the world being the U.S. dollar, we got serious problems, serious financial problems. Playing with crypto the way they're playing with, it's wrong. I think dead wrong for our country and for the world.
So how do you solve that? I mean, I could quote Yeats to you. I mean, things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. How do you get to the center then? If you're in the dead center and it feels dead.
Let me ask this. Do you think that, what I was looking at and what I saw a couple, 2, 3 years ago, and we kept seeing all the way up until we really got hot and heavy into this past 2024 election year, that every poll showed that people were ripe for a centrist. They were ripe for that. They were ripe for, let's say, a person who had been associated as a Democrat, one had been associated as a Republican, to put a team together and basically commit to 1 4-year term. We're going to bring our country back together and look at both sides, the best of both sides, trying to bring that back to the middle. Okay? Could that have worked? It looked like it could, in theory. It looked like it could when polling was done. But when you start trying to get on the ballot, the way the system has been weaponized, the duopoly that we have right now, the Democrat model and the Republican model, is based on fear and hatred. So trying to get in on the ballots was something that was almost impossible. When it came down to it, closer and closer to making the decision to run or not, could we put a team together? Who would that team be? We were looking at different people that have interest and had the ability to do it. But then saying, wait a minute, I don't want to be a part of a team that's going to be looked as basically a spoiler. I don't want to be going down in history that because of you being involved or me being involved or anyone else, that this party basically, through the election one way or the other, you get blamed for it. You saw how quick Bobby Kennedy, young Robert Kennedy Jr., how quick he tried to get out of that middle so he wouldn't be blamed. He tried to get off of ballots after he did everything he could to denounce that he was even out there running for president. It's just, if there could have been a way to have truly a legitimate way to get on the platform and debate and said, does this make sense to you, what we're doing?
So what for 2028? Now it seems like don't worry about spoilers, right? It's spoiled.
Oh, yeah, I think from that standpoint now, 2028 will be a whole different.
So tell me that. Let's finish on that.
Well, the main thing is we've just got to find if there's still the will to have a movement to save our country and bring it back to the basis of what we, the representative form of a government, to where people that you elect are truly representing you and not themselves.
It seems to me most people in the center are just giving up. That's the problem.
I haven't.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you. No,
is there?
I'm not going to change. I mean, like I said, if I was going to, I just believe. I know you were asking, Kara, why did I leave the Democratic Party or why I thought it left me? I just couldn't go home to the people I represented and having a Washington D on my name and saying I'm representing you. When they don't believe that anything that the National Democratic Party is representing a rural, poor state. I just got to be honest with you. It's kind of hard to have that conversation.
You also didn't put an R on there.
No, I couldn't do that. Because you know what? I didn't like what you're seeing now. Mm-hmm. I didn't like a lot of that. And I don't know if I could have, I think I can work better from the center than I could having a D or an R, because I think there's some things that both sides do. I want the Democrats to be that compassion they've always been, but responsible. You can't put roadblocks in front of me, put so many restrictions on me I can't even breathe. You can't tell me, basically, the Constitution says you have the right to the pursuit of happiness. Me taking the oath to the Constitution is going to protect you have that right for your pursuit of happiness. You find your happiness anyway, and I'll do it. Even if it's something I don't believe in, just don't make me believe I'm wrong if I don't believe in what you want.
So is there anyone you see out there?
Oh, I see a lot of good people. I
Name
think
one from every party.
What do you mean from every party?
But 2 parties, right?
Yeah,
or you can name other people.
I wish we had more parties.
I know you're a secret Mamdani fan, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
He's talking to people about affordability. You talk about affordability.
That's an interesting one there, but we'll see what happens. The thing of it is that, you have good people. You have a Josh Shapiro who's been able to govern in a kind of a split state. You got Andy Bashir in a state that really leans more Republican. I've got a little bit of preference towards governors, whether they be Republican or Democrat, because they've been able to function. Gretchen Whitmer seems to be like a very rational person. I don't know Gretchen that well. I know Josh and I know Andy better.
And a Republican you would pick?
The Republican, there's some really interesting people out there in the Republican. I'm not in that circle as much as I was in the Democrats before, but some of the governors they have out there have been very, very, rational, reasonable. Mitt Romney was always a person I could work with very closely. Lisa Murkowski. Some of these people here are unbelievable to work with. And Susan Collins, who's up right now. I pray for the sake of the Senate, Susan Collins wins again. I don't think anyone's going to be able to replace a Susan Collins, the way she approaches the problems and willing to look at the facts. And that's why she's so good. So,
final question. Would you say you're optimistic, in the middle, or pessimistic right now?
Well, I've been an optimistic person. I'm a realist also, and I understand how difficult it is. But I'm optimistic that basically we've been able to reach and pull ourselves out every time we've had challenges. And again, we'll go back to how we started about the angels, the special angels that we all have in us. I think everyone has good in them. Everyone wants to. I don't think you go through the process of getting elected in the public eye today and not have the desire to serve, and you have to be, in West Virginia, I've always said, a person can shake your hand, look in your eye, and see your soul. So it's hard to BS them, and I'm hoping they still have that gut instinct now. We've got to get people with character, good people that really want to be there for the right reason. And if they won't self-govern themselves, then put the term limits on them, and that would be the best way.
All right. I really appreciate it, Senator Manchin. Do you call yourself Senator Manchin more?
I'm Joe.
Joe.
I'll give you one little,
all right, sure,
little tidbit. Everybody, when you meet a person who's had a title or still has a title because of their position, being elected, appointed, whatever they may be, if they introduce themselves by their title before their name, 99% of the time you're going to have a problem. They think more about the power of the job than the person they become or the person they were.
Yeah. That's a very good tip. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's show was produced by Christian Castro-Vassell, Kateri Yoakum, Michelle Alloy, Megan Burney, and Kaylin Lynch. Nishat Kurwa is Vox Media's executive producer of podcasts. Special thanks to Catherine Barner. Our engineers are Fernando Arruda and Rick Kwan, and our theme music is by Trackademics. If you're already following the show, you know all the words to Take Me Home, Country Roads. If not, the beast is slouching towards Bethlehem, waiting to be born. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and see you on Monday.